thought I had it all under control. I was regularly changing the oil on our car, checking tire pressure. Sure, the vehicle had a few things that needed fixing, notably the brakes. I was going to get those replaced and maybe a few other issues taken care of. It was around 138,000 miles, and I wanted to make it last to 200,000, so I thought. Then, surprise, my daughter was driving the car when all of a sudden it lurched to a halt. It wouldn't start, just kind of whined and whined when I was called to the scene and I tried to start it. She was safe, but not the car. The engine had seized, too little oil in the car, and that was it. The mechanic said it needed a new engine, probably around $11,000, hardly an investment I was willing to make on a 13-year-old car with 138,000 miles. So much for the control I thought I wielded over the car's well-being. So it goes. We want control, we want to be ready for the future, know what's coming, take steps to assure what we believe to be the best outcome. Then, seemingly out of nowhere, we're thrown a curveball. Is it all futile, this insistence on trying to maintain control? Are we bound to the whims of the gods, of fate, of everything but our own efforts to shape the future? Maybe, in part. Even so, we need to do what we can. We can't throw up our hands, give up, sit back, leave things to others. To be sure, we're bound to be disappointed when we find our planning was for naught. Other forces had other plans, but we forge ahead. Put in a spiritual context, maybe we want all the answers, want to know what's coming. Maybe we tell ourselves we have the answers. Some faiths offer what they say are the answers. But don't be hemmed in, restrained, enslaved by the need for control, the sense that you dictate the future. It's impossible to have all the answers. Do what you can, but know that many swirling forces are always at play with a tendency to nudge things or shove things this way or that. Maybe that knowledge will help free you. And now we light our chalice, and if you would say the chalice lighting words with me in the order of service, we light this chalice for the warmth of love, for the light of truth, and for the energy of action. Well, good morning, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Ogden. My name is Tim, and I'm glad to be leading worship today with Bill and John for our special fourth Sunday Making Meaning service. This is when we try to make meaning of the strange, complex, joyful, challenging experience of being a human. Today we focus on controlling it, on control, having it, surrendering it. We want control in our life as we want control in how our lives unfold, and sometimes we have it, or think we have it, or strive to have it. Sometimes we don't. Maybe most of the time we don't. If we can't have complete control, does that mean we should sit back, let the world go by? Does surrendering to the need for control free us? Or is that giving up? On a grander scale, do we need to be out there asserting our views, shaping the world around us, doing what we can to counter those we believe to be on a misguided path? Will we go crazy if things don't go our way despite our protests? Where do we find balance? As this is our Making Meaning service, when we seek your thoughts, your ideas, your input, think on the topic. We will later invite you to come forward to sound off on the topic, if you're so inclined. We're glad you're here today in this community that strives to be loving, inclusive, and compassionate. One way to connect with this community is to let us know you're here. If you're a newcomer, welcome. We're so glad you're here. We encourage you to fill out a newcomer card in the pew and put it in the offering basket when it comes by later. And please stay and chat with us after the service across the hallway today. And if you're joining us online, please fill out the newcomer card online. If you have been a longtime member of the congregation, we encourage you to wear your name tag. This helps everyone feel more connected and helps our newcomers get to know you more easily. And if you haven't already, please put the phones on silent. We're so glad each and every one of you are here. Welcome.
Good morning, friends. Admiral James Stockdale stood before the student body of the Marine Amphibious Warfare School in Quantico, Virginia, several decades after being shot down over North Vietnam and spending 7.5 years as a prisoner of war, years of torture and solitary confinement. Then and afterward, he was morally fueled by the teachings of classical scholars, particularly the Stoic philosophers and teachers. Epictetus was the outstanding pagan moralist of the Roman Empire. Epictetus answered when asked, "What is the fruit of all your doctrines?" His answer was tranquility, fearlessness, and freedom. Admiral Stockdale used those words for the title of his lecture, from which I have chosen quotations for our consideration this morning. Admiral Stockdale addressed an audience of young Navy warriors, but I ask you to consider these insights in light of our own struggles in the troubled political waters of our time. Karl von Clausewitz, in his biblical book on war, said, "War is an act of violence to compel the enemy to do your will." Stockdale, we're in the business of breaking people's wills. And what is the most important weapon in breaking people's wills? I am convinced that holding the moral high ground is more important than firepower. Stockdale, Epictetus has taught me that my true business is maintaining control over my moral purpose. In fact, that my moral purpose is who I am. He taught me that I am totally responsible for everything I do and say. Epictetus, difficulties are what show people's character. Therefore, when a difficult crisis meets you, remember that you are as the raw youth with whom God the trainer is wrestling. Stockdale, I want to explain what memories of Epictetus's Enchiridion and discourses I had ready at hand when I ejected from that plane, was captured, imprisoned, and tortured. What I had in hand was the understanding that the Stoic always keeps separate files in his mind. First, for those things which are within his power, and second, those things that are beyond his power. Another way to say it is, those things within the grasp of his will, his free will, and those things which are beyond it. All these things, as are all things of real importance to the Stoic, are matters that apply principally to your inner self, where you live. Alexander Solzhenitsyn wrote in his book, The Gulag Archipelago, "It was only when I lay there on the rotting prison straw that I sensed within myself the first stirrings of good. Gradually, it was disclosed to me that the line separating good and evil passes not between states nor between political parties, but right through every human heart, through all human hearts. And that is why I turn back to the years of my imprisonment and say, sometimes to the astonishment of those about me, bless you, prison, for having been a part of my life. Stocksdale. I learned that good and evil are not just abstractions that you kick around and give lectures about and attribute to this person and that. The only good and evil are right in your own heart, within your will, within your power, where it is up to you. What the Stoics say is, you take care of that, and you'll have your hands full. Epictetus. God gives you attributes like magnanimity, courage, and endurance to enable you to bear whatever happens. These are given free of all restraint, compulsion, or hindrance. He has put the whole matter under your control without reserving any power to prevent or hinder. Epictetus. Who is your master? He who has authority over any of the things upon which you have set your heart. Stocksdale and Epictetus. When in tight straits, you should stifle what's in you of give and take openness, of being responsive, of offering counter options rather than outright refusal to go along. We called fellow prisoners who acted this way players and tried to prevent them from digging their own graves through bargaining. Epictetus asked, if someone had delivered up your own body to some passerby, you would certainly be angry. And do you feel no shame in delivering up your own mind to any reviler? Stocksdale. I think more needs to be said about good and evil. After all, the Stoic is indifferent to everything but good and evil. In Stoic thought, our good and our evil come from the same locus. Vice and virtue reside in the will alone. The essence of good and evil lies in an attitude of the will. What Epictetus bears down on is that your good and your evil are the essence of you. You are moral purpose. You are rational will. You are not hair. You are not skin. You are moral purpose. Get that beautiful, and you will be beautiful. Stocksdale. Remember, controlling your emotions can be empowering. Your inner self is what you make it. Refuse to want to fear, and you start acquiring a constancy of character that makes it impossible for another to do you wrong. Somebody once asked Epictetus, what is the fruit of all these doctrines? And he answered with 3 sharp words: tranquility, fearlessness, and freedom. Let us aim toward tranquility, fearlessness, and freedom.
Well, thank you, Bill. So do we assert control, at least try to control things, take active steps to put our lives in order? Should we try to imprint ourselves on the world around us by protesting, speaking out, letting our views known? Or is that a recipe for frustration, failure when things don't go our way? Do we cede control, accept that there are things we can't change? Try to rise above the fray and hubbub, vie instead for inner calm amid the tumult of the world. Here are a few thoughts I came across. This is from Stacy Mason, and these are kind of just random things I came across, which I think offer a range of views. Stacy Mason, who's the founder of the Improv Lab and Mason on Leadership consulting firm. I think humans by nature are wired to take charge, have an agenda, lead, conquer, and win. We've been taught this from an early age in order to pursue and fuel our ambitions. Drive is certainly an admirable quality. I just might suggest that if a hyperdrive mentality means never relinquishing control, then we're missing an opportunity to develop a few other skills that will serve us equally well. Skills like trust and vulnerability, learning to embrace the unknown and conquering fears. Marcus Aurelius, you have the power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength. Journalist Germany Kent, God has already equipped you with the skills you need to achieve your dreams. If you just try, work hard, take control of your destiny, remain true to yourself, and believe it is possible, you will have unlimited power to achieve the impossible. This is from Surrender by Vin Bloom in Medium. I've always been someone who wanted to have it all figured out, who worried about every possibility, who tried to plan for every outcome. I thought that was being responsible, smart, safe. Because honestly, the word surrender never sat comfortably with me. It made me feel weak, vulnerable, and like giving up the control. But somewhere along the way, it just became exhausting. Brad Anderson, The Neurochange Method. The plain fact is that you and only you are responsible for your happiness and success. Controlling your life can be scary, but is also empowering. It means that you have the power to change your life for the better. If you're unhappy where you are, you can make a change. When you accept your power, no one will be in your way as you achieve all your goals. And here's Diane Solomon from Psychology Today. There are actually very few things we control. We control what we do with our bodies, hopefully, how we act, what we think, easier said than done, I know, and how we react to events or people, again, not necessarily easy, but doable. Pretty much everything else lies outside our circle of control. No matter how hard we try, we won't be able to control those things. So, as with many things, most things, everything, there are many truths that seemingly go in all directions. So there seem to be spiritual and practical elements to control. Does a higher force manage things, providence? Are we, as thinking, acting beings, responsible for our fate, our happiness, our future? Is it somewhere in between? What are your thoughts on the topic? Have you been in a situation where you thought you had things under control, only to be surprised? What lesson did you take away from the experience? Have things gone your way? Was it the result of your efforts? What are your experiences trying to mold things to your vision? Is it possible? Is it a recipe for frustration if things don't go your way? Are higher powers at play? Do we need to control everything around us? So now, I guess I put it to anyone, to you guys. Anyone thoughts on the topic? Coming up, Suzanne?
Stay flexible or you'll get bent out of shape. Now, I forget the older gentleman who's on his way to heaven who said that. Who was it? No. Yeah, he lived up in... No, it wasn't. It was... What? I think so.
So a lot of you know that we attempt to take 1 or 2 international trips a year, and generally they've gone extremely well. We have, made ferry trips and train trips and bus trips and all kinds of things where it's beyond our control what happens with those forms of transportation and flights, of course. And so we were traveling from Paris to the southwest region of France, where we were doing a 3-week service project. And we got on the train in Paris, no problem. They were expecting us later that day, and only to find out when we got to the city of Angoulême that the regional trains were on strike. And we're like, okay, we know nothing about this place. We've never been here. We called our hosts, and they said, we'll come and pick you up tomorrow. There, it's not that far. And so we got a recommendation for a hotel, which turned out to be delightful. And what we learned was this little town, because we had the whole day and the evening there, was the birthplace of Victor Hugo. And they were actually having a festival around it because I think it was his birthday. And so we discovered this absolutely amazing small city in central France that we wouldn't even noticed just going from train to train. So I think part of the thing is be flexible in your planning and get travel insurance.
Others?
Morning. I'll apologize in advance. I'm going to talk chemistry, and to try to stitch together a few ideas that are floating around out there. What sort of sent me down this path was Tim's line of how some spiraling force will just come in and knock you off your path, and it reminded me of the concept in thermodynamics of entropy. And the most common working definition people give on entropy is that it's essentially a measure of chaos and disorder, right? That's essentially the most common way you'll hear it described. But sort of in keeping with today's theme, there's a separate definition that people who work on statistical mechanics will put out, which is that it is the number of different ways you could arrange all the constituent parts of a system and reproduce the same emergent behavior in the whole. And sort of underlying that whole thing is that every piece within a system is not the same, right? Every molecule in a population, it is traveling its own direction, at its own speed, it has its own internal energy, and it is behaving as an individual, and it has its own properties. And there's a neat paradox in there, which is that the vast majority of molecules are all doing the same thing, and that's what gives something its stability, what, make sure that all the matter is still here when we come back in a week is the fact that it's not doing anything too crazy. But there's always the outliers, right? The members of the population all the way out on the tail end who, for one reason or another, usually because they bumped into just the right other parts of the population, they've got enough energy to enact change. And something that I've been working on myself lately is first just being more comfortable recognizing when I am just sitting right in the middle of the distribution, right? When I'm just like in a certain setting, I'm just going to be a stable part of the system and not drive change, not do much, right? We rely on that. And then also noticing times and places where it seems like maybe I do have enough energy to punch through on something and drive a little bit of change. And in the end, deciding when to operate in each mode is going to come down to your own faith and your own values and trusting that you're doing it at the right time and in the right ways. But I don't know, that's where all this led me today. Thank you.
Thank you. Got another thought?
A quickie.
Okay.
Maya Angelou said, the only characteristic a person needs is courage, and everything comes after that.
Wanted to offer some words of encouragement. That, to me, was the main message that I walked away with after I had written the homily for us this morning. That the power to invoke change lies within each of us. And the ingredients we have to achieve that are our evaluation of good and evil. And I think you know from me having given these homilies numerous times in the past that there's a go-to source that I would pass on to you as advice for how to deal with things that are occurring in our times that we struggle with. Almost always, I return to the ancient scholars and philosophers and seek their wisdom. And one of the reasons I do that is I find solace in the fact that human nature has remained largely the same throughout the ages. And that the wisdom of wise people applies in that context throughout the ages. So when I quote Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, and others, that's where I'm coming from. And my encouragement to you is if you don't already do that, or if you just do it in some random fashion, pick up copies of some of these ancient tomes, Epictetus' Discourses, or the Enchiridion, neither of which was written by him, was written by his student. And just have them by the bedside that you can pick up, get quotes from them, gain solace, gain wisdom. Those, for me, have always been sources.
Play more golf.
I think the important takeaway for me is that when you're looking at what you can do, you need to look to your core, because that's what you can control more than anything else. The rest of the world is oftentimes quite out of your control. I remember tragically the hubris I had as a young adult. I had studied psychology, I had graduated, I was working on a psychiatric unit, I thought I was doing wonderful stuff. I had a patient I got very close to, and when they were released from the hospital. We met up and had coffee, and I thought this was just a really, powerful thing going on, and then he shot himself, which gives you a lot of humility. And so I think it's important to remember that, you work from your core, you do what you can, but you're not in control. The engine's going to freeze whether you were taking care of the brakes or not. You just have to understand that the world's going to do what the world's going to do, and you just need to control yourself.
I'm short. I couldn't help but think, as people were telling the times of being out of control, having life throw curveballs at you, if you will. And I thought of my own life when, like a lot of you, I chose to be in a situation where I knew I had no control. The year was 1962. The Vietnam War was just beginning. And I knew my life wasn't going where I wanted it to go. So like a lot of people did, I went to Fort Douglas, Utah, raised my hand and said, "Verily I will." I climbed on a Braniff Airlines airplane out of Salt Lake City and found myself in about 3 hours in boot camp, where I chose to be totally at somebody else's will. Having spent several weeks with drill instructors yelling at me and screaming at me and telling me how to do things, I quickly resigned myself. This is temporary. And after some time, it became one of the most changing events of my life. And I look back at that time fondly, and I learned a lot from it. We learn a lot from being out of control. So that's my story.
Oh, good. I'm short, too. Good morning. My name is Charles Gustavson, and I'd kind of like to piggyback on Bill. Around 2014, I was in the midst of those of us what we call a faith crisis in the ex-Mormon community, where the dominant paradigm, philosophical framework of my life kind of came crashing down around my ears. And I had to kind of pick myself up and figure out, okay, how am I going to approach life now? Like I need, we all have our kind of comforting viewpoints that, that we use the scaffolding that we use to support our life and our morals and our opinions. And I had to do a kind of a clean out, kind of a spiritual inventory. And it was a hard time. Luckily, I had a very supportive spouse who had been going through the same process, and I was able to find a really awesome therapist who 75% of her practice was helping ex-Mormons kind of deconstruct and figure out themselves. But I did find comfort in Stoicism. As a lifelong Star Trek fan and someone who has secretly, not a secret crush on Spock her whole life, I know, young Leonard Nimoy, whoo-wee, the ears. And so he And, and that always appealed to me as someone who's, realized she was a scientist at the age of 10. And so that kind of logical, sort of clear-eyed, Stoic way of thinking really appealed to me. But actually when I got into studying the Stoics and really learned that it was, there is room for emotion. It's not cutting off your emotion. It's just looking at the world plainly as it is and realizing what you can and cannot do. And it's freeing, really, because it's like, there's only so much. There's this much I can control, and then everything else is outside of my purview. My sister gave me a beautiful cross stitch that says, "Not my circus, not my monkeys." And that's kind of, but the rest of it's not that my circus, not my monkeys, but the clowns definitely know me. And that's really, I have that hanging on in my office at home, because it's like there's only so much I can do. And, you just have to learn to embrace fate. The Stoics talk about amor fati, which means love fate. And that whatever comes your way, it is what it is, and it's your job just to roll with it. Dr. Ober, who was a longtime microbiology professor at Weber, said his philosophy was mutate or die. You learn that from the bacteria. And so I've applied that, and that's very much what the Stoics teach as well. You just kind of have to say, okay, can I do anything about this? Nope. All right, let's move it on. Or the times where you can, then it's your responsibility, your moral responsibility, that if you can do something, then you should. So that's been very helpful in the past 12 years as I've kind of had to rebuild my life and grow as a person. So I highly recommend studying the Stoics. They're good times. So very helpful. Thank you.
We bless these stories. There's strength in sharing our stories together, and there's vulnerability too. Thank you for sharing yours. There's an affirming prayer. It's old and rather well known. It seems fitting at this time. It's often used, and its most familiar version comes from Alcoholics Anonymous. If you will, and you know it, I'd like you to repeat with me the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, and change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. We continue our collective prayer by engaging in our weekly ritual that helps us to symbolically hold the challenges and the joys of being human. As you light a candle up here, let it hold your aspirations and your memories, your grateful feelings for this beautiful, complicated world and for our lives. As you drop a stone into the sacred gathered waters, may it be an opportunity to imagine a burden that you are releasing and a quest for forgiveness to be held in a community of care and compassion. Please come forward. Our offering is a demonstration of gratitude for this community filled with care and courage and resistance. Through it, we commit to keeping this community resourced for the ministries ahead, both within and outside our walls. As we collect our offering today, we remember our interconnectedness and interdependence. Please rise in body or in voice, face the center aisle, and sing the offering song.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
We are grateful for your generosity and endeavor to use this to its best service. We have some invitations today. You should be aware that we do have a religious education class going on right now, and that we will endeavor to do that every Sunday. Though we could use some volunteers to help with it if you are able. Okay. The invitation to join the choir remains open. We're in full force today, but not always. So please speak to Joseph if you'd like to join in. Okay. Our book club meeting for this month has been canceled. And for the following month, on June 17th, they will be discussing Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. I think if you're familiar with that book, you know maybe that's why they postponed a month, to give you more time to read it. Okay. Our Good Trouble Committee is hosting a Share the Table. Karen, did you want to talk about that? Ashley? Ashley, please. No, you have to come up here.
Hello, I'm Ashley Kingfisher. So we are going to be having a potluck and service project night where we are going to be making food for the Weber fridge. And then afterwards, we're going to have our potluck dinner. So we do a little bit of work and then we have a little bit of playtime. That'll be May 3rd. There's going to be a sign-up sheet during coffee hour so that we can coordinate our meals and also coordinate the planning around the Weber fridge food. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you on this.
Karen, do you want to talk about your showing?
All right, so I have an art show that's opening on May 7th at the Pleasant Valley Library. That's across from the hospital on Adams Avenue in Washington Terrace. Beautiful gallery there. And the reception is from 6 to 7 p.m. It's a Thursday evening. I have some postcards with me. If anyone, I'm also have it on Facebook and in the newsletter. Thank you, Shalyn. But please come to that. If you can't, the show will actually be up until the end of June, and then it would be moving to the Huntsville Library for the rest of the summer, so you can catch it at either place, but I hope you'll come to the reception. And because I am so blessed financially, we are, that I donate 100% of my proceeds, my sales, so I am currently supporting the ACLU of Utah. Thank you.
So we have an empty hook here on the wall, and I just had the idea that there's a lot of artists here. So every week, someone who wants to sell a piece of art should put it on the hook. And that hook holds up to 100 pounds. And then they can dedicate the money to where they want it to go, whether it be homeless people, which is close to my heart, or their mother, father, brother, sister, or to John here. He's a nice guy. I think it's a good idea. So anybody can bring a piece of art.
A reminder about Codger's Coffee, Friday mornings, 9:30, grounds for coffee. About half the people who show up are UUs, and the other half are from the community. It's always an interesting gathering, and we indulge in the Unitarian ritual of questioning everybody's answers. Are there any other announcements? Okay, Joseph.
So as the service comes to an end, join me in saying the chalice extinguishing words in your order of service. We extinguish this chalice, but not the warmth of love, the light of truth, nor the energy of action. So maybe we don't control everything, but do what you can. Remember, though, things don't always go our way. Disappointment is inevitable, but we're resilient. We can work through it. Have a good week, everybody. And one note, our sending music is number 414. I believe that's in the gray hymnal.